This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. If you're looking to bling out your cards, using Alter Sleeves is a great way to do so, and you can click the affiliate link in my About section to help out the channel as you make an order. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game features those dashing Danes. Unfortunately, we didn't track opening hands, but I can say Adam is playing Lurrus of the Dream Den, Mads is playing Krenko Mob Boss, I am playing Omnath Locus of Creation, and Jesper Eising is playing Silas and Kodama. Adam wins a die roll and starts us off. Adam plays a Plains and casts a land tax. Jesper draws, playing a Bark Channel Pathway on its front side for a green source, casting Allosaurus Shepherd. I draw and play a Flooded Strand, cracking it to go and find Prairie Stream, while Jesper reveals his Allosaurus Shepherd was actually a sweet artist proof, complete with a sweeter Randy Vargas illustration on the back. Mads draws, playing a mountain into a Mog Fanatic and passing. Adam draws, but doesn't get a land tax trigger because unfortunately he went first. He plays a swamp and then taps 2 into Arcane Signet. Jesper draws and plays an island. I draw and play a forest. I cast Nature's Lore, going to find a tapped Stomping Grounds and passing to Mads. Mads draws and plays a land, casting Dragon Fodder to make 2 Goblin tokens. He then swings the Mog Fanatic at Adam for 1, and passes turn. Adam finally gets his land tax trigger thanks to my Nature's Lore, going to find 2 plains. He then draws and plays a swamp for turn before running out a Zulport Cutthroat, and then an Altar of Dementia before passing turn. Jesper draws and plays a Waterlog Grove, passing without another play. I play a Plains and cast an Oracle of Moldiah. I flip the top card of my library, revealing Tatyova, and then play a Boros Garrison from my hand since it's my second land for turn, bouncing a basic back to hand. Mads draws and plays a mountain into a Goblin Chieftain to pump his team. He swings 2 Goblin tokens at Adam and the Fanatic and Chief at Jesper. They both declare no blocks, taking 4 apiece, and Mads passes turn. Adam draws and plays a Plains, and then slams out Yawgmoth. He then passes turn, and at the end of turn, Jesper sacrifices the Waterlog Grove to draw a card. Jesper draws and plays an island. He then casts a Scoot Swarm and passes. I draw Tatyova, revealing Roiling Regrowth on top. I then cast Omnath, drawing a card and revealing Scapeshift. I then play a Plains and gain 4 life off Omnath and pass to Mads. Mads draws and plays a mountain. He taps 4 for Krenko, and Adam's unable to kill the Chieftain, which unfortunately lets Krenko tap to make 5 Goblin tokens. Mads then checks the board to see where to swing, and while Yawgmoth's great against humans, he's a little worse against goblins.
Okay, if you want to wait.
Can any of you guys just share some light on what you plan to do with all those goblins?
I plan to watch Mads beat you to death with Goblin tokens.
Same.
And then post it on the internet so people can laugh.
Yeah.
That is my plan. Mads swings the 5 Goblins at Adam, and 2 tokens and the Fanatic at Jesper, for 10 damage and 6 damage respectively. Adam blocks one of them with Yawgmoth, and the Cutthroat, sacrificing the Cutthroat to Yawgmoth to put a -1/-1 counter onto my Oracle, draw a card, and also drains the table for 1. Adam draws and plays a Swamp, and in his main phase, casts Demonic Tutor. He then follows up with Blind Obedience, and then a Sensei's Divining Top, paying 1 to extort the table. He then passes to Jesper. Jesper casts Mystical Tutor on his upkeep to see if he can find an answer. He grabs the 3 visits, draws it, and then casts it, going to find a Bayou. He then taps the Bayou to cast Imperial Seal, tutoring another card and losing 2 before passing. I draw the Scapeshift for turn and reveal Glacial Fortress, which I play and gain 4 life off of Omnath. I then flip the next top card to reveal Cultivate. However, its time on top is short-lived, as I cast Roiling Regrowth and sacrifice the Stomping Grounds to go and grab 2 basics to put into play tapped. This triggers the rest of Omnath's landfall ability, adding white, blue, red, and green to my mana pool, and then dealing 4 to each opponent. After I'm done shuffling, the top shows a breeding pool, which I play as my second land for turn, and then reveal Zendikar's Royal. Moving to combat, I swing at Jesper for 4, at which point he remembers he has a token from the Scoot Swarm, which blocks Omnath while he takes 1. In my second main phase, I then cast Day of Judgment to deal with Mads' board of goblins. He responds by pinging me for 1 by sacrificing the Mog Fanatic, and Adam also sacrifices Yawgmoth to the Altar of Dementia, milling himself for 2, and I then end my turn. Mads draws and plays another mountain, and then casts a Hordling Outburst. Once that's resolved, he plays out a Mog War Marshal, which all enter tap because of the Blind Obedience. Adam draws and plays a Plains. He then casts his commander, Lurrus. Once Lurrus is resolved, he uses Lurrus' ability to cast Ghoulport Cutthroat from the graveyard, and then follows up with an Animate Dead from his hand, bringing back Yawgmoth as well. With nothing else, Adam passes. Jesper draws and plays an Illurin. I decide to take full advantage of this during his end step by flashing in a free Unsettled Mariner and moving to my turn. I draw and play out a Tatyova. Once she's resolved, I cast Retreat to Coralhelm and pass to Mads. Mads draws and plays a Command Beacon. He then pays 6 for Krenko, who unfortunately comes into play tapped, and passes to Adam. Adam draws and then plays a Swamp and pays 0 for a Jeweled Lotus. He then casts an Altar's Reap with Extort, sacrificing the Zulaport Cutthroat, draining the table from the Cutthroat and the Extort, and then drawing 2 cards. Once that's done, he follows up with an extorted Drannith Magistrate before replaying the Cutthroat from his graveyard thanks to Lurrus. Moving to combat, he attacks Jesper for 3 with Lurrus, and with nothing else, passes. Jesper draws and casts a Cloudstone Curio, passing turn. I draw and cast Scapeshift in my main phase, floating the rest of my mana. Adam activates his Sensi's Divining Top, putting it on top and drawing a card in response, while I go and search for my Scapeshift lands. I've sacrificed all of my lands to go and grab Alchemist's Refuge, Temple of Abandon and Temple of Mystery, a mountain, irrigated farmland, hollowed fountain, Hinterland Harbor, and Temple Garden. This lets me draw 8 and gain 8 life from Tatyova, and I scry 1 twice from the 2 temples, putting the first to the bottom and leaving the second on top before passing to Mads. Mads draws and plays a Kirin Negotiations, which Jesper counters with a Swan Song to give him a bird. Mads decides to keep his goblins back on the defensive and passes to Adam. Adam actually gets a land tax trigger this time around and goes to find 2 swamps. He then sacrifices the Cutthroat to Yawgmoth to put a -1/-1 counter onto Krenko and draws a card, and then drains the table for 1. He then draws, plays a swamp, and casts a Lotus Petal before recasting the Cutthroat from his graveyard, thanks to Lurrus, and drains everyone for 1 with the Extort trigger from his Blind Obedience. Adam then discards a card to activate Yawgmoth's second ability, proliferating the -1/-1 counter onto Krenko. This has Mads responding to it by activating Krenko and making 6 tap goblins. Once all that's done, Adam then sacrifices the Drannith Magistrate to Yawgmoth to kill Krenko and draw a card, with the Cutthroat draining the table for 1 again. Once more the Celport Cutthroat gets sacrificed to put a -1/-1 counter onto the Unsettled Mariner, and Adam pays the 1 to target it. He then casts Call of the Death Dweller to return the Drannith Magistrate into play, and moving to combat, swings Lurrus once more at Jesper. Before moving to blocks, Jesper flashes in Aquarian Ranger in response, which unfortunately can't block because it comes into play tapped though. Jesper then takes 3. Before Adam passes, I flash in a Flamekin Harbinger and go and grab Risen Reef, which is a pretty obvious choice, while we move to Jesper taking his turn. Jesper draws, plays an Exploration, but unfortunately isn't drawing very much action this game, and passes turn. I draw my Risen Reef and play a Soul Ring in my main phase, and then get to cast Risen Reef for free thanks to a Lurrus. I follow it up with a Skyshroud Ranger, and then a Chandra's Embercat, with the latter triggering the Reef, and draws me a card. I then hardcast a Reveillark without the Evoke, triggering the Risen Reef again, and then cast the baby version of Reveillark, Vesperlark, which flips into an Evolving Wilds off the top from the Risen Reef. I then follow up with a Rampant Growth to get an island, and overall I draw 2 and gain 2 off Tatyova this turn. With the land coming in, I have the Retreat to Coralhelm trigger untap the Reveillark, and I pass to Mads. Mads draws and swings all of his creatures at Adam. Adam uses the Lurrus to flash in a Dream Devourer, and blocks 2 Goblin tokens with the Magistrate and Devourer. He then sacrifices them with Yawgmoth to kill 2 more, drawing 2 cards and losing 2 life. In his post-combat main phase, Mads then puts to table a Throne of the God Pharaoh. Before dying to the Throne trigger at the end of turn, Jesper flashes in a Shrieking Drake to bounce Aquarian Ranger, then flashes the Ranger back to bounce the Drake. This creates an endless loop that doesn't actually do anything though. Responding to one of the triggers though, Adam decides to sacrifice Lurrus to Yawgmoth to kill the Shrieking Drake. Jesper's loop is then interrupted, and he dies, and Adam and I are dealt 9 damage from the throne at the end of turn. Adam draws, and plays a Swamp. He sacrifices Yawgmoth to mill himself to the altar for 1, before casting a Grim Haruspex, and then a Plaguecrafter. I sacrifice Reveillark, and Mads sacrifices a Goblin token. Adam sacrifices the Plaguecrafter to mill himself for 3, drawing a card, and then sacrifices the Grim Haruspex to mill himself for 2 more, and has to discard a card. He follows up by casting a Living Death, bringing back all of his creatures, and this leaves me with a Royal Elemental and a Reveillark, while Mads gets his Mog Fanatic back, his Mog War Marshal which comes in and makes a token, and the Goblin Chieftain. The Searcher Priest from Adam's graveyard gains him 8 life, and pings me for 2 and Mads for 4. The Plaguecrafter then makes me sack Reveillark, and I get to bring back Risen Reef and Flamekin Harbinger, and Mads sacrifices his Mog War Marshal. I get to put 2 cards to hand off the Reef, and tutor for an Omnath Locus of Rage to put on top. Adam then sacrifices the Dream Devourer and drains the table for 1. This gets him an Eldrazi spawn off the Pawn of Ulamog, and then casts a Lotus Petal from his graveyard using Lurrus. He then uses Yawgmoth's ability to kill the Royal Elemental, and sacrifices the Plaguecrafter and the spawn as well. This has him making a replacement spawn in the process. He then sacrifices the Grim Haruspex to kill the Risen Reef to draw, and drains the table again. He gets to make 2 more spawn tokens, and then taps enough for a Felwar Stone. Adam continues to sack creatures to Yawgmoth, sacrificing the Priest and Lurrus to kill the Chieftain, drawing 2 and making more spawns. He then uses the new spawns to cast an Orzhov Signet, before sacrificing Drannith Magistrate to kill the Flamekin Harbinger, drawing a card and making yet another spawn. He follows this up with an Angelic Renewal, sacrificing the spawn for mana, and he casts a Leonic Relic Warder. This makes what we believe on the field to be an infinite loop to drain the table with the Zulaport Cutthroat, or mill us out with the Ultra Dementia, but we are mistaken. We did catch after finishing recording that he does actually have a combo in his graveyard, as Adam can play the Leonian Relic Warder, sacrifice it, and Yawgmoth, or the Pawn, for 2 spawn tokens, then use the mana to cast Lurrus from his Jeweled Lotus. He can then use Lurrus to get Animate Dead back, which in turn returns a Leonian Relic Warder, who as it enters, exiles the Animate Dead. The Warder then dies, and the Animate then comes back, and the Animate Dead then comes back, which in turn brings back the Warder, and essentially creates a loop, draining the table infinitely thanks to the Zulaport Cutthroat. Game review time. I'm not actually too sure what Jesper's deck was trying to do, since we really didn't get to see too much of it in action. It was Sultai, but it could have been anything with those two partners. Mads, on the other hand, was very clear with what he wanted to do, and that was violence. He was able to get a huge board state out pretty quickly, and that's kind of what Krenko does until someone answers the board with a board wipe. I think if I hadn't had that Day of Judgment, Mads might have run away with the game. I'm still really unimpressed with Omnath. I know a lot of people probably enjoy this kind of deck, but it's just not for me. I think I'm going to be taking it apart, so I'd be interested to know what other 4-color commanders people are interested in. Adam's Lurrus deck didn't seem like it was doing much until it actually did, and his curve being so small meant that he was able to drop multiple pieces a turn. Yes, we did get the combo wrong at the end of the game, but it was almost midnight in Copenhagen, and he had the setup to do it properly, we just missed it. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.